You ready?
Introduce the wonderful Donna Crump.
Oh,
and Donna's going to give a wonderful presentation to you.
I have a little story before we get started about Code 2 button. Has anybody here accidentally pushed it? Yeah. I did that not that long ago. I got a new phone, one of the new fancy dancy phones, and I'm sitting in my office, and for some reason I think that the phone is touch screen. I guess because I'm used to iPad and iPhone, it looks like one. So I was messing around and sitting, working, and all of a sudden this voice out of nowhere comes, Donna. And I go, yes. I didn't know, that was God talking to me. And she said, this is Becky. I said, hi, Becky. Like, I'm going, Becky. And all of a sudden, she said, everything there okay? Yes. Anyone with you? No. She said, do you realize you pushed Code 2? No. But she handled it really well, because I still wasn't, I mean, she takes it really seriously when that happens. She said, and she didn't say she was calling from the police. She said, do you want me to stop by? No, I'm really embarrassed. I'll never do that again and put a big note, do not push this button. Well, welcome to Ready, Set, Go, GRCC's College Action Projects. You came from, what did you guys talk about at the last one? Talk about Code 2 and disruptive students and those kind of things. Well, this will be a real big change of pace for you. So we'll take you through this. Before I get started, does anybody have any specific questions about college action projects that they want me to cover? Or is this, I'm sure you just were thinking last night, boy, I just really want to learn about college action projects, right? Penny?
Just one general question. I just see this all in pieces in meetings and stuff, and I have not really been able to visualize this and put it in a chart how it, is that what you're
Are you in luck?
You paid me to say that.
Yeah, here we go. Slide number 1. Oh, if this doesn't help you, then let me know. All right. This is, what we're going to talk about is the college's strategic planning system. All large organizations have strategic plans. We are accredited through the North Central Association, specifically the Higher Learning Commission of the North Central Association, and they require the colleges in there that they accredit to have strategic plans, which means you need to know where you're going as an institution and have goals. And you need to report on the degree to which you accomplish your goals. So along with all the other colleges in the North Central Association and most organizations, we have a strategic plan. We've had a strategic plan for years and years and years. As long as I've been at the college, which is 1993, I came over from GRPS, we've had a strategic plan. Sometimes they're one-year plans, sometimes they're multi-year plans, sometimes they are efforts that get written down and put on a shelf and nobody looks at them for a really long time. Sometimes strategic plans are really vibrant and drive the organization. We hope we're on that last end, that our plan is vibrant and it actually lists the things we're planning to do and in the process of doing and accomplishing. Where did our strategic plan come from? All strategic plans start from the college's mission, vision, values, ends, and the college scorecard or dashboard, which are the indicators that we watch to show that we're improving in those areas that we've identified we want to improve. Mission, vision, values, and ends, and the scoreboard are documents that are given to us by our Board of Trustees. It's the board's responsibility to set forth the college's mission. However, in most organizations, they suggest that the staff have input into those important documents. And that's good because nobody likes to be handed some documents and said, here, implement this. That they had absolutely nothing to do with it. So the board worked iteratively, and we're going to go over that in a little bit, but the board worked very closely with staff in terms of what were going to be those mission, vision, values, ends, and the college dashboard or scorecard. North Central also tells us that we need to have a vibrant mission that we reevaluate regularly. And there are certain periods of time in a college's life when North Central says you must reevaluate your mission. That's either after 10 years and or after you've had a change in the presidency. We had both of those happen about the same time. Dr. Mulder had started, and then Dr. Ender, and we were at about year 11 in our current mission. So it was time for us to reevaluate our mission, vision, values, and those documents. At that point, you have two options. You can either choose to keep your current mission, or you can change your mission. So what our board did was asked staff to provide input as to whether or not they thought our mission should be updated or changed. And each department had a session a couple of years ago where they took a look at that, and several people suggested changes. And I'm going to give you the big picture now, and then I'm going to go through more details. So I'm going to skip now to part 2. Once we have a mission, vision, values, and a dashboard or a scorecard identified, you then create a team of people, usually, to create a strategic plan to accomplish that mission. At GRCC, we've had several iterations of strategy teams. We used to have one called the strategy team when I first started. And then we had College Planning Council for several years. And now we have what's called Strategic Leadership Team. The names have changed. The numbers of people on the teams has changed. But basically, their role is the same, which is to create the strategic plan and monitor the implementation of the strategic plan. Our current strategic leadership team has about 80 people on it. That's a very large strategic planning team for an organization. Most organizations have between 10, 12 people on their strategy team, and they're usually the top leaders of the organization. At GRCC, we've always prided ourselves on being inclusive and getting a lot of people involved, so we decided to have 80 people on our strategic leadership team. It's worked out pretty well for us. One of the differences in the new strategic leadership team is that people are now appointed to be on that team. Used to be with our strategy team and our College Planning Council, people volunteered to be on that team. Now, for the people who are on the team, that didn't really matter. The difference is that there were some people who should have been on that team and weren't. And that created some conflict. When Dr. Ender first started and we had our first meeting about strategic planning, he asked me, if you could start over, what would you do differently? And I said, I would appoint people to this team because there are people who needed to be there. As an example, in the past, we have never had the person who was running our IT department has never chosen to be part of our strategy planning. Well, as you know, most of what happens at GRCC requires IT support at some point or another. When that person wasn't there, and then there would be a strategic plan action project that required IT, and they would call and say, I need this for an action project, and they're going, what? You know, who? And so we wanted to make sure that there were certain people who were part of the process that was developing these college action projects. That team, the strategic leadership team, looks at environmental scanning data. That's the next step. So once you have the mission, vision, values, and the indicators, you want to look at data. Now, environmental scanning data comes in 2 types. One part of environmental scanning data is internal data to the institution. So the SLT studied enrollment trends, student success trends, things like course success rates, retention rates, graduation rates, human resource data, do we retain our employees? They studied a lot of information about the college itself. The other part of environmental scanning data is data about the community which you serve. So for us, we looked at data about Kent County, how many people were graduating from high school, what was the readiness level for college of those high school graduates, what's the migration patterns in and out of Kent County. We looked at Michigan data, we looked at national data. What are the trends? What are the programs that are expected to be important in the next 10 to 15 years? So we looked at a lot of data. Then the next thing that the strategic leadership team did was identified strategies for each of the ends. What strategies are is they're less specific than college action projects, but more specific than the end itself. it's a path. It's a pathway to how you're going to accomplish the end. So if we look at your handout, and the reason I gave you this handout is you got a really nice version of this at Learning Day. You'll remember it had a compass on the front. It was blue, really pretty. It has the very same information that this cheap-looking white handout has, except that this version has the names of the Action Project champions. And I wanted to make sure that you guys had the names of the people who are running these projects or leading these projects. So you'll look, this is set up by ends. We decided to organize our strategic plan according to our 6 ends. So for each end, there's a definition statement, there's strategies, there's college action projects, and then there's indicators or the data by which we'll look at to judge the degree to which we're making progress on the bottom. So the first end is academic alignment. GRCC collaborates closely with other educational providers to provide a seamless transition across all educational sectors. Basically what that says is we're going to work with the K-12s and we're going to work with the institutions of higher ed to make sure that a student has a seamless experience across all of them. So the first strategy, provide a seamless transition to other institutions of higher ed. So this is saying we're going to identify projects that help us work, that enable us to work with other colleges and universities so our students can transfer easily. The second strategy is integrate the K-12 to college preparation experience. So we're going to work with K-12s to make sure that students are ready for college, ready to come to GRCC and be successful. So we've just taken apart that end into 2 separate pieces. So if you take the first one, strategy, provide a seamless transition to institutions of higher ed, we could think of a lot of different ways to do that. There's lots of ideas, things you could do to improve that relationship, to increase those, develop those pathways. The college action projects are the specific things that we've selected to do under that particular strategy. And under strategy 1.1, we have 3. And you can see them there, 1.1.1, 1.1.2, 1.1.3. We're really creative when it comes to things like that. So we have 3 action projects for that particular strategy. College action projects, and that's why you are here, because I was asked to talk to you about college action projects, but I'm going to give you way more for your money today. College action projects is just one component in the strategic planning process at GRCC. We also have 3 other important components that I'm going to just touch on briefly. We have division and department plans. Now, all of you either work in a teaching academic department or an academic support department, right? Everybody here? Okay. If you work in a teaching department, you also do strategic planning, but we call it something totally different. We call it academic program review. That's an academic teaching department's way of doing strategic planning. You're on a 3-year cycle. Depends how involved you get in this will depend on whether this is your year or you just had your year. But those happen, it happens every 3 years where you have to do a lot of stuff, and then the other years you just have to provide updates. If you work in a non-teaching department, what I call non-academic departments, you have to do a strategic plan for your department every year, every February. I know Penny just had to do one. I know Tracy just did one. Many of the people here just finished doing department plans. Those department plans are also tied to these same strategies and the same ends. So it's integrated together. We want a seamless system. So we have department projects and then we have college projects. We also have teams at the college. We have lots of teams at GRCC. Student complaint team, the sustainability team, what other? There's tons. We have tons of teams. If you're a cross-functional team, every year you're asked to fill out a report where you list your goals for your team for the next year and your relationship to the strategic plan. How is what your team is doing, how does that support the college mission, vision, values, and ends? And then if you're in meet and confer, on your individual performance evaluations, you also have specific projects that tie back to the college's strategic plan. So I have on my own individual performance plan, some specific actions that I'm going to do this year that will be under specific ends, and then work up to the college's strategic plan. So the individual level, team level, department level, and then the whole college level. We're all working together, we're all integrated to accomplish the college's mission, vision, values, and hopefully make positive changes on the indicators that we've selected to monitor. Now, what makes something a college action project? That's a really good question. It becomes elevated to a college action project for basically two reasons. The first one is that it requires work across more than one department. Now, I have projects in institutional research that we can do with just people from institutional research and just the budget that I have in institutional research. Those are my department projects. But I'm also involved in college level projects, and the one I'm involved in is implement a data warehouse. We receive money through our Title III grant to purchase a data warehouse. I can't do that only with the people from institutional research. We need a huge amount of support and assistance and direction from our IT staff to do that. So Kevin O'Hala and I co-lead that particular project because it requires support and integration across multiple departments. So that's what a college action project typically is it requires integration and support across multiple departments in order to implement the project. The other thing, remember I said it was two things, the other thing is money. Most college action projects, not all, but most college action projects either require money or another resource, typically staff resources, from the college to accomplish it. They can't be done with just the dollars that you have in your own budget. So by elevating it to a college level, it becomes more likely that it'll be budget supported. All college action projects have a champion. Now the champion is the person who's been identified by the president and the provost to lead that particular project. In the past, we would have situations where we had one person championing multiple projects. What we realized is that didn't work very well. People really can only handle one college action project that they're leading at a time. And so with our new strategic plan, we have a separate champion for each project. Some projects have two champions, but you'll see nobody has more than one project. I mentioned that this is the current strategic plan that we have is a 3-year plan. It was created in 2010-11, and it's expected to end in 2014 or be finished in 2014. Who can tell me what's special about 2014? Our 100th anniversary. So we're really smart at SLT. We decided it would be a cool thing is that if we finished our plan during our Euro celebration, and then we could point to all the accomplishments that we had made on our strategic plan. So we decided to do a 3-year plan and would have a start date, which was July of 2011, and then an end date of July of 2014, right in the middle of that year. However, some of the projects, current college action projects, are carryovers from previous years. So in reality, we have projects, a series of projects, some of which are in their very first year, just started last July, but some projects are actually in their second or third year if they're carryovers from previous strategic plans. So we have projects all over the board. Brand new projects, well, none of them are brand new anymore. Some of them are 7 months old. Some of them are 18, 24 months old. So they're not, we didn't start everything from scratch. We rolled some projects over. I'm going to go on now to, instead of a big picture, this is for people who are more linear, this is a more linear milestones of how we got to this point with our strategic plan. And so this is a little bit more detail than I had talked about earlier. We started in 2009-10, that academic year, by getting input from departments regarding what they thought should be different about our mission, vision, and values. And many of you probably participated in those discussions. All of that input was given to, at that time, we had a college planning council. They looked at all of the data that had come in from the separate departments, and they created 6 different mission, vision, and value statements based on the input that they had gotten from departments. Basically, it's a big team. We divided them into 6 separate sub-teams. Each sub-team came up with 1 draft. We gave all 6 drafts to our Board of Trustees, and between February and June of 2010, the board worked iteratively with the College Planning Council with different drafts of those statements, back and forth. We also put those on the college's website, and we had a blog going, and people from the college at large were asked to provide comment on those documents. And many people did. Made suggestions, things they liked, things they didn't like. By September of 2010, or excuse me, by August of 2010, the board did their first reading of the final draft of the mission, vision, values, and end statements. The way that our board, these actually become policies, and the way that our board is structured, new college policy has to have at least 1 reading or public hearing before they become finalized. So they have a first reading, sometimes a second reading, sometimes a third reading, depending on how many changes they make. They did a first reading in August. There's some suggestions, and we made some changes. A second reading in September. We then reformulated and had the first meeting of the strategic leadership team in October. And then also in October, the Board of Trustees officially adopted the mission, vision, values, and end statements. You'll notice then that the strategic leadership team kind of went into action creating all of the strategies and the action projects. Now, the way that they did that was we broke that team into 6 sub-teams, a sub-team for each one of the ends, and the sub-teams worked to brainstorm projects that the college could do to accomplish the strategy and accomplish the end. They came up with lots more projects than we could ever have on a strategic plan. Some of them were kind of out there. Some of them were good things to do. We just couldn't do that many. So what they would do is they would present to the larger strategic leadership team. They would get feedback. They'd go back to their subgroup and talk about what people liked, what they didn't like, should projects merge. People would offer ideas that they would consider. That went on all the way from October to the following May. It wasn't, we met monthly as a strategic leadership team. Many of the sub-teams met several times between our big team meetings to do work. But it was a large process of sifting through ideas and taking the things that everybody felt really strongly about, and those became our college action projects. You'll notice that after the board adopted the mission, vision, and values, the board doesn't come up anywhere here. Anybody have an idea why that is? Well, I'll tell you. Our board operates under a model called policy governance. What that means is that the board is responsible to tell the college president and the staff what it is that the college needs to accomplish. They do that in terms of the mission, vision, values, and ends, and they also select those indicators or the data that they're going to look at to see whether or not we've accomplished those things. Those are the college ends. The means are given to the president and the staff. How you accomplish those ends, the strategies that you use, the projects that you pick, the way you do things, is the president and staff's responsibility. So the board outlines what it wants the college to accomplish, and the president and staff has all the autonomy to decide how they're going to do that. So that's why with the strategic plan, they do those overall documents, but the president, through the strategic leadership team, determines what are we actually going to do as a staff to accomplish the strategic plan, to accomplish the ends through the strategic plan. Oh, let me back up a second. The strategic leadership team recommended the strategic plan to the president in May of 2011, last May. It says final draft. It was actually marked 5th draft. We did 5 separate official drafts of the strategic plan before it was recommended to the president. He accepted it, and at that point, we created or identified champions for each of the college action projects, and the president and the provost were the 2 that did that. So they decided who it was, who it made the most sense to lead each one of these projects. Now, in many cases, it was the person whose job responsibility was around that particular piece of work. So it wasn't terribly difficult to select champions for the action projects. They were trained last summer, and they started their work last summer. The first thing we asked each college action project champion to do is to prepare what's called a worksheet, and we'll take a look at them in a little bit, but they had to outline how they were going to implement their particular project. And you know, we're at JRCC, we have forms for everything, so there's forms for all of this. And I think after this, you guys are going to go learn how to do even more forms, so you'll be good at that. But they all turned in a form last September, a worksheet about their project. And what we've been doing at Strategic Leadership Team this year is monitoring the implementation of each of those projects. Now, the way that we do that is each champion prepares a PowerPoint slideshow, typically, and it makes a presentation to the SLT in terms of how the project is going, what they've accomplished, what are their areas of concern, what's going well, what's not going well. And then the strategic leadership team gives them feedback as to what they liked, what they think should maybe be changed, questions that they might have. So we've been spending most of our meeting time this year doing that ongoing monitoring of the implementation of the strategic plan through those college action projects. The other thing that the team is doing is we report to the Board of Trustees regularly on the status of how we're doing on accomplishing a specific end. So 2 of those reports have gone to the board, academic alignment and access. And basically, the teams are responsible to prepare those reports and then to present them at a Board of Trustees meeting. And then just last month, each department prepared 2012-13 department plans, again, tied to the same college ends. Now, I thought about where do ESP people tend to interact or interface with college action projects. And I came up with a bunch of them, and you'll probably have some ideas yourself. But here's some things I had thought of. As I had mentioned, the champions are asked to complete these worksheets, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if many of the ESP people who work for those champions didn't get involved in preparing the worksheets, tracking down some of the data that goes on the worksheet and filling those out, or the update sheets. Preparing those PowerPoint shows. I said I think every project to date that is presented has done it with a PowerPoint show. And those PowerPoint shows are generally done in 2 places. I mentioned already SLT, but most projects go to academic dean's work sessions prior to going to the SLT, where we review and discuss each project and provide input to the champion. I think ESP people get involved in preparing those board monitoring reports. I'm guessing Penny's in the middle of doing that as we speak. Maybe she's even writing about it, because I know Rick is doing the one for next month. Yeah. Collecting and organizing data required to support a CAP. Many of the CAPs either require data collection up front. We need to understand the problem better so that we know what it is we need to do. Or as part of the implementation of the project, there's data required in itself. And I'm guessing that many of you are involved in collecting or organizing that data. Participating on an SLT team or sub-teams, preparing appointments for those. The first rule for a champion is assemble a team to help you. None of the champions are doing this work by themselves. They're all creating either advisory teams or work teams, and they're working through these college action projects as a team. And those teams all meet independent of the strategic leadership team meetings. So I suspect that either you people are on those teams or yours help setting up those meetings and supporting that teamwork. You're participating in department planning sessions, either if you're in a teaching department as part of academic program review, or if you're in a non-teaching department as part of department planning. You're setting up team meetings to support CAP projects, and everyone's expected to be informed regarding college long-term strategies and goals. Is there anything I missed? Is anybody involved in college action projects in a way other than what we've talked about here? Got them all? Okay. Just going to stop for a minute. A couple more things I want to cover, but any questions at this point?
The first organizational map that you have, can you send that to us, or is it on the website to where?
It is on the website, but I'd be happy to send it to you too. That's strategic planning.
With that map and
Sure. I will definitely do that. I thought about having that as a handout today. I probably should have. I wanted to talk about, for a minute, I wanted to point out our AQUIP projects. How many of you have heard of AQUIP and have a sense for what that is? Diane, you don't count because she's... Can anybody tell me what AQUIP means? All right, we'll go over that a bit because it's related to this. I mentioned at the beginning, we are required to do a strategic plan under the Higher Learning Commission, North Central Association. The other thing, I'm going to talk a little bit about our accreditation process. We are in the Midwest, the North Central Association. They accredit all colleges and universities in this area. It's really important to maintain accreditation because if you don't, your students don't get financial aid, which is a big thing, and your credits don't transfer. And as Diane knows, that's a really important thing. Students don't want to go to non-accredited colleges. The accreditation process, you go through it about every 7 to 10 years, and colleges need to go before a board of their what's called peers, volunteers from other organizations who come to your campus and visit you, and they take a look at your college, and if everything's up to snuff, they'll re-accredit you. You'll continue your accreditation. There used to be 2 paths to be accredited. One was called PEAKS, one was called AQUIP. PEAKS is what they call the traditional path, and in a PEAKS process, you're accredited for 7 to 10 years. Basically, for the first 7 years, the college does absolutely nothing, and then a year to 2 years before your self-study visit, your self-study and your accreditation visit, there's a huge flurry of activity as people are getting ready for the visit. Anybody at GRCC when we used to have those visits, those self-studies? A couple people remember that. That's the traditional way of doing it. In 1999, NCA came out with this new version called AQUIP. It stands for Academic Quality Improvement Project. We were one of the original colleges who applied to be an AQUIP college, and we were accepted as one of the first group. We actually have a plaque that congratulates us for being one of the first colleges to be considered AQUIP colleges. What's different about AQUIP is instead of having no activity and then a huge amount of activity, you do a little bit every year. So it's more spread out. You're always doing something regarding accreditation rather than having this big job that you need to do at the end. There are about 1/3 of the colleges that are accredited through the Higher Learning Commission are AQUIP colleges. 2/3 follow what used to be the PEAKS process. The PEAKS process is currently going away. They're revamping it. There'll be 4 different methods. AQUIP will still be one of the 4. All the methods are more AQUIP-like than they were before. AQUIP is considered a very successful adaptation of accreditation. People like that idea that you're doing a little bit all the time. One of the things we have to do to be a good member of NCA using AQUIP is we have to have a series of college action projects that we're regularly reporting our progress on to the Higher Learning Commission. Now, some colleges will have a strategic plan, and then they'll have separate AQUIP projects. We've never done that. We have always had our AQUIP projects be part of our college action projects, a subset of them. Now, what makes it an AQUIP project? What the Higher Learning Commission asks us to do is to pick a minimum of 3 projects that have the most potential to change the culture, particularly regarding student success. That will make they call it the biggest bang for the buck in terms of making the most amount of change. So I just wanted to go through the plan and point out what our AQUIP projects are. And these are projects that we have special reporting requirements that we have to do to the Higher Learning Commission every August. The first one is on page 2. It's under the End of Access Strategy 2.1. The project is 2.1.1. Implement the College Success Program for Developmental Students. And you'll see it says AQUIP project behind that. Tracy is very familiar with this project. Cindy Martin leads it. And basically this project is revamping our developmental education program at GRCC. About a half of our students who come into GRCC require at least one developmental course. So this project has a huge possibility of impacting positively a lot of students at GRCC.
Donna, I'm sorry, what's
Yep.
the percentage?
The percentage is 50, a little over 50. 50% of students coming in as first-time students are required to take at least one developmental class. The second project, AQUIP project, is on page 5. It's under Strategy 5.2. The project's being led by Lori Chesley, 5.2.2. Improve the adjunct faculty experience. This is a project, as you know, we have a large percentage of our courses are taught by adjunct faculty, and currently, in too many cases, the experience that the student is having when taking a class from an adjunct faculty may not be the same as if they were taking it from a full-time faculty member. What this project is attempting to do is to provide resources and professional development and just information to adjunct faculty that will enable them to create a more similar experience to taking a class from a full-time faculty member, giving them all the resources they need to do the best possible job as an adjunct faculty. Again, has a probability of impacting a very large percentage of our students in a positive way. The next one is on, oh, I missed one. I was going to say, where'd it go? Page 2, under 2.2, project is 2.2.1, being led by Eric Cunnin as the champion. Expand the distance learning program. Students love to take distance learning classes. They are always the very first classes that fill up at GRCC. The problem we have is that students don't do as well in distance learning classes as they do in face-to-face classes. That is not unique to GRCC. That is a national issue. People love them. They don't do as well. This project is both attempting to increase the number of courses that we offer in distance learning, but also to close that gap between students who are taking face-to-face courses and the success rates of students who are taking distance learning courses. Again, big project, has a potential to be a positive impact to a lot of students at GRCC. And then the last one is on page 6, I believe. Sure.
If the student success isn't as high, and it's nationally, not just for us, why do they want to increase those? Just because
There's a huge demand for them. Students love to take them. They just don't do as well in them.
Okay, so it's the demand, but then it's our job to find out how we can make that.
Absolutely. That's how do we close that gap?
I have a related question. This is, none of these give specific, standards or
Goals.
yes.
But yeah, that's all in the worksheets.
It's all in the worksheets, okay.
Yep.
So, so there's a worksheet for distance learning. It says, off the top of my head, we want to hit 25% of our
Yep. And I'll show you where all those are.
But what happens when we achieve, if we don't achieve that, this is like a 3-year plan.
Right.
If we don't achieve it in 3 years, do we continue to do it, or do we have to go back and make that decision, or does the board make that decision?
The team will make the decision.
Okay.
The team that's leading it will make a recommendation to the strategic leadership team.
And what happens on an overall basis when we are successful at the end of that? Are we?
We'll close this particular project and start a new one.
But it's integrated then, but then it's integrated within the goals of whatever department. It's
Correct.
Not like it's,
Yeah.
It's not like it's done.
When projects are done being college action projects, it means it's, as Tracy just said, it means it's become an ongoing part of someone's department work. Yeah, we never really totally end a project.
So would you go, but it's ended as a cap?
It's ended as a cap, correct.
The work
is integrated.
So then would you go back to the pool of ideas that you had
Exactly.
in the beginning? So all those are sort of...
They're being held in limbo. Yep.
Right?
They're prioritized, but they're also, we wouldn't just go back and pick up an old idea. The team would say, what makes the most sense to do now?
Okay.
But that would all be done at strategic leadership team.
Because things could have also changed.
Exactly. And they're continuing to look at environmental scanning data, what's new, what's different. Okay, the last project real quick is on page 7. Project 6.2.1, develop a college-wide career pathway system. Tina Hoxie's leading that project. And what that's about is we have data that tells us that students who come to GRCC not knowing what career goal they have for themselves are less likely to make it through to graduation successfully. Even when students change their mind several times while they're here, they still do better than students who come saying, I don't have a clue what it is I want to do. So what Tina's project is doing is working on this pathway system to work with students who come to GRCC with unidentified career goals early on to try to get them thinking and making decisions about what it is they want to do. Again, has a huge potential of impacting large numbers of students. Now real quick, how much time do I have, Diane? Okay, we'll do this real quick. I wanted to show you the website. 2 minutes. We can do it in 2 minutes. If you go to grcc.edu/strategic planning, all one word, all of the things that we just talked about are on, the documentation for it is on this website. So if you look, bless you, if you look across the side, under strategic planning, you'll have vision, mission, and values, the ends, strategies and indicators, college action projects, department plans by each end, achieving the dream information, the members of the strategic leadership team, and there's a lot of documentation about meeting minutes and things about SLT, the college dashboard, and then the monitoring reports that go to the board. You'll notice that each one of these is blue, which means it links to another document. So what you can do, if you're interested, and if you have the questions like Penny was asking about what are the specific goals for each program, we'll click on this one, continue and complete the programs of study initiative to map curriculum between high school and college in all academic areas. Here is the documentation about that particular project. And that's true of all of them. So you could go through here, sometime, that one rare Friday afternoon where you have some time. I know that doesn't happen to you guys very often. But if you're interested in more details about any of these projects, you can go through and take a look at the specifics.